put this slide in last week because last time we got together we were talking about food addictions, right? Principle 3, avoiding food addictions. Don't let any food or drink become your god. And we talked about caffeine, fat, sugar, flour, salt, alcohol, drugs, what's an addiction, how it's way more than just, oh, I want it so I have to have it. It's a biopsychosocial system that's in place that's going on here, and obviously as you can see by that slide it's pretty in-depth. So undoing habits definitely takes a lot of underlying commitment and most addicting foods. Why so addicting? Because they specifically engineer this stuff to keep you eating more.
What's a casomorphin?
Casein is the protein found in dairy.
Okay.
Oh, right, you weren't here last week.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Okay, and it attaches to the same brain receptors as opiates, morphine, heroin, cocaine. It has an casein does have an evolutionary purpose. It's in cow's milk, so baby cows drink the milk, right, and want to continue keeping with their mother.
But that's why cheese is so addictive, and it's like, I still have problems with cheese. It's like one of my biggest crutches is cheese. And that's why. Because it has that casomorphine in it, and like Ashley said, it hits the same receptors in your brain that like opiates do.
Yep.
So it's like being addicted to an opiate, basically.
Wow.
It's like super concentrated because it's, shriveled down. So it's like really, really, really intense.
And I love cheese. Love cheese.
Yeah.
But of course it's not part of my regimen.
I mean, I'll say it again, and like you can look into this, but the Hippocrates Health Institute is like, they follow the purest diet on earth. It's sprouts, algae, wheatgrass. It's all raw, but it's all living food, and they allow for stevia.
Okay.
As a sweetener.
And they're like anti-sugar anything.
They don't, it is no fruit. Like, this is a no sugar diet.
Wow, no fruit.
No fruit.
These are for really sick people that have
Stage 4 cancer, multiple sclerosis, you go there.
Okay.
Oh, that's right, because cancer feeds on sugar.
Right, right.
Where is
Right.
that?
It's in West Palm,
Florida.
I mean, it's like 5%, if you're healthy, they say like 5% fruit in your diet or something like really low. It's not. So just because fruit's been so hybridized anyways, it's super high in sugar. And this is really enlightening in terms of, wheat is in like everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So sticking on the food addiction part and remembering what we learned about wheat. Wheat's like definitely got twofold issue here. Like, it's super heavily treated with chemicals. It's been so hybridized over the years that it's not like anywhere near at all what it should be nutritionally for us. We have a really hard time digesting it, especially because, I mean, if you're talking about bread, the only bread that people should be eating anyways is sprouted bread, because that's the only way that we're able to digest the wheat protein anyways, is if it's sprouted, and it generally isn't. But this goes into the addictive qualities of it and why. So it's about 6 minutes long.
So what's so bad about this thing that Dr. Borlaug and BASF and all those people came up with? What's wrong with it? Well, let's talk about the protein gliadin. So gluten, this thing you've heard about, a protein in wheat, is really a two-part protein. It's got glutenin. You ever see a pizza maker do this? Right, with dough? What else does that? Can you do that with cornstarch or rice starch? No. You'd have a mess, right? So the glutenin polymer has that unique, what the bakers call viscoelasticity. It gives that stretchy characteristic that almost nothing else has. Well, that's the glutenin in wheat. Well, the non-stretchy protein is another protein in gluten called gliadin. And gliadin is the thing you want to, if there's one thing you and I take away from all this, it is there's something wacky about that gliadin. Well, back in the 70s, it became clear, there were several psychiatric groups here in the UK who made this observation. If they take their patients, this was years ago, so 40 plus years ago, when, right now if you go to the hospital, you have a nice private room or semi-private room, right? Do you remember the days where there were 40 patients with you in the same room? The big hospital wards? Well, back in those days, the psychiatric hospitals had closed large wards. So their patients could not come and go as they pleased, and everything was controlled. Their medications were controlled, their diet was controlled. Well, several psychiatric groups back then made this observation. If they took all the wheat out of the diet of their schizophrenic patients, they got a bunch better. They weren't cured, but their paranoia, their hallucinations improved dramatically. They'd add back the wheat, they'd get much worse. This is over 4-week periods. They would take the wheat away, they got better. Add it back, they get on again, off again, on again, off again. This was reproduced a number of times. So the people at the National Institutes of Health asked, why? What the heck is in bread, or pretzels or cookies, that causes schizophrenics to hallucinate? So this group, led by Dr. Christine Zedrew, boiled it down to the gliadin protein, that protein we're talking about. And this thing, upon digestion, enters your brain, and it acts as an opiate. It binds to the opiate receptors of the human brain. So the human brain is filled with so-called opiate receptors. That may not be the nature's intended effect, but that's how it plays out in real life. So if I take morphine, provides pain, relief from pain. If I take heroin, makes me high, makes me goofy, and I can't control my thoughts or my behavior. If I take wheat, or the gliadin protein, the breakdown opiates of wheat, I don't get high, I don't have pain relief, I only get appetite stimulation. Okay, so it binds mostly to the kappa receptor and others. I don't get those other effects, I just get appetite stimulation. So this is one of those opiate proteins from wheat. This is the A5 pentapeptide. This binds to the human brain. So this led, this observation that, for the most part, by the way, was not made much of. You didn't hear much talk about that in the 70s. Well, this led to a whole series of research where people asked, well, gee, if that's true, if wheat is an opiate, what if we give nice people opiate-blocking drugs? Not take away the wheat, doesn't make any money. Let's give them opiate-blocking drugs. So this is a small study where nice, normal people came into a laboratory and they were told, don't eat breakfast. We'll feed you lunch and dinner. Okay? So they come in, they skip breakfast, and they have lunch, and they're told, eat all you want. And if you look at that leftmost bar, that white bar, you'll see they took in about, those are calories, they took in about 1,000 calories. They waited several hours, and then had dinner. And they're told, go ahead, eat all the dinner you want. And they ate about 800 calories. So about 1,800 calories. Well, these same nice people are brought back sometime later, some weeks later. This time, same deal, but this time they get an injection of a drug called naloxone. Anybody who works in an ER or a hospital has used Narcan, naloxone, to reverse unintentional overdose on morphine, for instance. It blocks the drug's effect within seconds. So it's an opiate-blocking drug. So you give these people an injection of Narcan, or naloxone, and they're told, go ahead, have all the lunch you want. Well, this time they eat about 700 calories for lunch, and then for dinner, about 700 calories for lunch, or about 1,400 calories over the course of the day, or approximately 400 calories less after injection of an opiate-blocking drug. Okay? So, wouldn't you know, someone is enterprising on this. The FDA application was made about 2 years ago, still pending, for the drug naltrexone, which is the oral equivalent of naloxone. It's an opiate-blocking drug, and in the clinical trials, it reduces calorie intake by about 400 calories per day, and people lose about 26 pounds over the first 6 months. These are non-heroin addicted, non-morphine addicted. These are just normal, everyday people who have a weight problem, and they're brought in, they're given this drug, and they lose weight, even though they're not addicted to opiates, at least not the kind you take the drug form. Well, this is not proof of cause-effect, but I find it very, very interesting. If you look at what's happened to Americans, North Americans, since this stuff made it to your store shelves. So this thing was invented in the 70s. You saw Borlaug getting the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, but it really didn't reach your store shelf till about 82 to 85 or so, okay? But by 1985, everything you bought came from bread, pasta, cookies, came from the high-yield semi-dwarf strain, okay, the spawn of Dr. Borlaug's work. So what happened to weight? Well, you know. Anybody watched the headlines know that starting in about the early to mid-80s, we had an explosion in weight. You've been to Walmart, haven't you? Well, if I gain 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 70 pounds, what do I get? I get diabetes. There's a lag, right? I gained 30 pounds on Tuesday. I gained it over months or years, so there's a lag between gaining weight, having your appetite stimulated, gaining weight, and developing diabetes. So the number of diabetics, of course, followed suit. And these are data from the CDC only till 2009. If I include it till 2011, that is the last year for which we have data, you would see that the curve is now vertical. So now I can't prove to you cause and effect with these data, but I'll show you why I think it's very, very suspicious. It smells awfully bad that we've been fed an appetite stimulant. So wheat, via its gliadin protein, is an opiate. And by the way, there's a lot more to this gliadin. Because of the time allotted, I can't go into all that. But it has other effects. So if it's an appetite stimulant, what does it do to people with a tendency to an eating disorder, like bulimia or binge eating? It gives them food obsessions. What does it do to a child with ADHD or autism? It gives them behavioral outbursts and difficulty with attention span. What does it do to a schizophrenic? Well, you know, it causes paranoia and hearing voices. What does it do to a person with bipolar illness? It triggers the high, the mania. So it has mind effects, but in nice, normal, everyday people, it only stimulates calorie intake, appetite. Okay.
So, I mean, going back to like when we were talking about the pizza and how there's a marketing tool, it's called the Bliss Point, where they know what ratios of things they need to put into stuff to get you to continue to eat it so that you continue to buy it because they care about their bottom line, they don't care about your health. They know this. They put this stuff in everything, so that you keep buying the processed food and you keep buying things with wheat in it and breads and things like that and croissants and donuts and cookies and cakes and it's why. This is why it's so hard to put down. Not to mention the fact that sugar is also the other substance that we haven't even touched on yet. That will be next week or in 2 weeks. But that is another big, huge point that they put into these foods to keep you buying them. So my point with sharing all of this is that so you are well informed when you go to the grocery store as to who is actually in control of what you're buying and your health, and it should be you. And it's really easy to take charge back and to take control back when you understand what's going on behind the veil on the other side of these big industries. I mean, look at the food pyramid. This picture is literally right off the USDA website. I put in food pyramid. This is the picture that came up. On the bottom is bread, cereals, rice, pastas, right there, right there. Like that is what you're supposed to be eating the most of, which is
6 to 11.
6 to 11 servings.
Ridiculous.
That makes no sense.
It's ridiculous, but it does if you
Have an agenda.
have an agenda and you're part of the model that wants people to continue to have to take pharmaceuticals because it feeds that model. It feeds that system.
And where do I get, that video you just showed, what is that from What's with wheat?
He is the man, yes, he's all over it. He's the author of the book Wheat Belly,
Oh.
which is a
okay.
phenomenal book. Any sort of healthy therapeutic diet, like, you know, what Liz is doing or what Roz is doing, is going to be cutting out gluten, it's going to be cutting out refined sugars, it's going to be cutting out dairy, and it's going to be cutting out processed foods. Those are the 4 top. I mean, genetically modified and organic go like above and beyond that. But baseline to this is those 4 things. And we are going to go a little bit into today the gluten aspect and the leaky gut part of it, so you have an understanding of what that is and how that is affecting most of society. Did you have that? Okay. So what's with the gut? So, just a little bit of an anatomy review. Your gut is the mucosal lining. It starts in your nose and it goes all the way down, basically to the toilet. If you laid it out, it has the surface area of about 2 tennis courts. It is the biggest structural surface area in your body. There is nothing else as big. It is also the only internal system that comes in contact with the external world, because it does, right? It's just a tube, basically. It's like a donut, and whatever goes into the donut is from the outside world. Food, liquids, things like that. It's a barrier system between what we breathe, what we eat, and what we drink. It is the home to our microbiome, which is, it's not you. That part is like so cool to me, because the DNA in your microbiome is not human, it's bacteria, and their job is to keep you healthy. And there's trillions of bacteria that live inside of you that literally their only job is to keep you healthy. It's about 5 pounds, 3 to 5 pounds, depending on, you know, your stature and what you have inside of you. They digest your food. So you eat food, and the bugs digest it. So they eat it, they break it down, they digest it, they separate it into waste products, and then they transform it into the vitamins and minerals that your body needs to use to assimilate. Our microbiome regulates our immune system. They send off messages if there's bacteria in the area that your immune system needs to come and take care of. They regulate your mood. They tell your brain what to do. It's literally your first brain. They protect against bacteria and diseases. They produce vitamins vital for life, B1, B2, B12, and vitamin K, just for example. Do you want to say something?
No?
Okay.
Let you finish.
Our gut houses about 80% of our immune system. Like, that is massive if you wrap your head around it. So that's how important what you eat, and that's how critical what you eat is to your health, because 80% of your immune system lives in your digestive system. That's so impressive. Like, talk about COVID and everything that we've been going through. Like, no wonder why, with everything that we've learned in this class, which has been a lot, it's more than your average person, like, you can obviously see why we have such a problem with people getting sick and passing away from a virus that really, in a healthy person, didn't do much. Like, it didn't do much. So, outside of, yeah, okay, we'll leave it at that. It's the most important structure for preventing acute and chronic illnesses, like I just said. So, the healthier this system is, the healthier you are. If a client comes to me with a problem, the very first thing, it doesn't matter what they're coming to me with. It doesn't matter. The very first thing we are doing is gut health. And we are reworking all of that. And it's about education, it's about removing the things that are causing toxicity, and it's about increasing the deficiencies that they have. But it starts with removing all of the bad stuff, and which honestly is non-negotiable items. No dairy, no gluten, no refined sugars, no processed foods. Those are non-negotiables for health. So if you want to move anything in this world, those are the 4 things that have to go. Was there 5? Did you say 5?
Yeah,
What was the 5th?
I forgot.
I just want to touch on, one thing that you skipped over actually was how
Oh.
thin it is, 50 microns, right? And so that's, if you take your hair out, one of your hairs, and you cut your hair in half, that's how thin the lining is. So, and then we talked about, you know, leaky gut and what an issue that is today, and one of the main reasons is all the glyphosate in the wheat and the BT toxins in the wheat, and the BT toxin is made to blow holes in that epithelial, right? And glyphosate basically rips it apart.
Anyone heard of leaky gut? Anybody
Obviously,
heard of
I
it?
didn't watch your
Yeah.
slides.
Anybody not heard of it? Perfect. Okay. Here's your beautiful alimentary canal. It starts in your mouth, goes all the way down. It's really the coolest system for me, anyways. So here, this is actually one of my notes. This is from one of my study notes. But this is, you know how they talk about you having all those little fingerling villi projections in your small intestine? This is just a cross section of one. This is just to show you where we're talking about, okay? So if this is your small intestine and I took a slice of it and then I focused it in on one of those villi, this is the epithelial lining that we're talking about. Inside that one villi, this is going to be your lymph vessel, and this is going to be your arterioles and then your venules, so your arteries, and this is a capillary bed. So this is where oxygen exchange happens on a cellular, like single cell, blood cell level. But this is what we're talking about. So these are the microvilli that absorb food and catch food, that go through, so the food is passing right on top of this, or right through it, rather. Do you understand? Like, food would be going this way, right over it. So that's what's coming in contact with the bolus of food as it goes through your system. Okay, a healthy gut lining is like a fishing net, allowing only vitamins and minerals to get through. Increased intestinal permeability, or leaky gut, means that the gut lining is damaged and cannot optimally function as a barrier any longer. So this is another really great picture.
Tight junctions, yeah.
These are called tight junctions. This is what keeps these villi together. So again, the food and everything is passing up here like normal. Here is where your red blood cell, where oxygen exchange is happening down here. And this is just your mucosal level layer, and nothing except for what is supposed to get through is getting through. This is a very healthy digestive tract. This is way a lot of information, but I just want you to know. Zonulin is the protein responsible for regulating gut permeability. It's mainly synthesized in your liver, and it tells those microvilli cells when they can open up and be a little bit more permeable, and when they can close because like a vitamin or a mineral needs to get through. So what happens in leaky gut is it wedges itself in between, well, what happens is it wedges itself into the tight junctions and opens the passageway into the bloodstream. So it hooks onto one of these, and those open up like a little gate, like a key in a gate. Overproduction of zonulin is caused by bad bacteria getting in contact with your microbiome, and gluten. So those are the two things that will overproduce it. Zonulin receptor, all right, so if you have a whole lot of zonulin now running through your system, now all of those tight junctions that you have are not so tight anymore because they're way overstimulated, and they're all loose and they can't really stay together, and now you have these big gaps, and there's now nobody, what's the analogy I'm looking for? There's no more gatekeeper.
No gatekeeper, yeah.
Thank you. People that have leaky gut have issues with brain fog, right? Like I said, if somebody even comes to me with anxiety and depression, the first thing that we're going to do is your diet, because the two go hand in hand. So, and this is why there's zonulin receptors that are found in the brain as well. So if you have an overproduction of this stuff that is flowing through your system, it's going to be able to open the blood-brain barrier as well and let everything that we're about to go over through there and gum up your brain. This is the underlying reason for the mental component of leaky gut. So here's the same slide that we saw, and on the bottom is leaky gut with loose tight junctions. You can see that those bacteria and allergens and toxins are getting through into the bloodstream where they're not supposed to be. And the thing is that your immune system is down here. So if those things are getting through, all of a sudden your immune system is like, what's going on? And it's firing off T cells and all of this stuff, and now you have a huge systemic, because your bloodstream isn't just local to your digestive system, it's local to your digestive system for all of like 3 seconds, and then it's up in your brain and it's everywhere, right? Because it flows everywhere. So now you have a huge, massive reaction throughout your whole body. The smaller holes become larger and allow harmful substances like gluten, bad bacteria, and undigested food particles to enter your system. And they cause considerable damage to your health. The body responds by launching an inflammatory immune response to clean up and fix the issue. This leads to chronic inflammation, autoimmunity, and cancer if the cycle stays active. So it's one thing if like you go on a bread binge for like a week and you know your tight junctions get a little loose and things start to get through and you're really gassy and you're really bloated for a while, but then you don't ever touch gluten again, like that's one thing. But if you're eating this stuff like the standard American diet tells you to do, right? I mean, wheat's even in hot dogs, like it's in deli meat, it's in everything. If you're constantly, every day, insulting this system, then you have systemic inflammation. And the thing is that, and we'll see in a later slide, oh, here's a really pretty picture of it. Gut symptoms are not normally first signs of this. So if you're not having bloating and indigestion, but you are having migraines, that's leaky gut, #1. Or anxiety and depression, again, leaky gut, #1. Autism, leaky gut, #1. ADD, leaky gut, #1. This is a really great slide because it shows, well, I mean, you can see. So you have massive nutrient malabsorption because these things are not getting absorbed the way that they're supposed to. They're not being broken down. Your good bacteria in your gut is losing this battle big time, right? So it can't do its job. You're being malnourished on a cellular level. Autoimmunity, as Martin said, you are giving off a massive immune response, but it doesn't matter because these things are continuing to come through your gut barrier, or your gut barrier, and your immune system is just attacking everywhere, and it's just on overload, and then it turns on you because it has a hard time then because it's overstimulated, identifying what's you and what's not.
And then what's happening through all this? It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
It's just protecting it. It's
Right.
distracted.
Yeah.
So now it can't fight a virus like
COVID. Right. Because I mean,
It's
yeah.
all wrapped up in dealing with this.
Right. This causes massive food intolerances too, because you have all of these foods now that are triggering your immune system because they're in places that they're not supposed to be. So now all of a sudden you have all these food sensitivities that you didn't know you had or you didn't previously have, or they came out of nowhere, but this is why. Blood-brain barrier breach, we spoke about that. I mean, who wants gluten floating around your brain? I mean, but like that's in all reality, like you can walk around the grocery store and like kind of see who this is affecting and who, like it's obvious once you kind of start getting on the other side and being knowledgeable about this stuff and systemic inflammation.
And why do we have so many food sensitivities and allergies in like kids nowadays? It's like, you know, kids are allergic to everything now. And I think this is...
What about asthma?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
respiratory disease, respiratory illnesses are linked right up to this stuff.
I'm just wondering.
People
My-
don't think,
my
oh, you
niece-
know, my asthma, they think of it just, again, like it's a reductionist mentality where everything's kind of separate. And you would think a respiratory disease has to do with like your lungs and your bronchial and your airways. That you wouldn't think diet has anything to do with it, right?
But does she eat dairy?
I don't know, but it's not her. It's her son.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he eats dairy, if he eats dairy,
Uh-huh.
I would say that's the number one thing.
Mhm.
Get it out of the house for 3 weeks and see what happens.
Okay. I'll tell her.
But again, that's one of those non-negotiable foods.
Right.
So, I mean, if you got all of those out, I can guarantee you that he's not gonna have the problems that he's having now.
Yeah.
Wait, what would you substitute for milk?
Almond
For milk, almond milk, coconut milk, hemp milk,
Any
any
plant-based
sort of
milk.
plant-based milk, as long as you're following like what we've talked about, like oat milk would have to be
Try to
organic.
be organic, yep.
Almond milk would have to be organic.
Okay.
Coconut milk, I think pretty much always is organic, I don't think I've ever seen one that's not.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Once you get out of like following like the food pyramid, I have to have a glass of milk every day because I need to get my calcium that way. Like calcium comes from plants. And then the cows eat it and then it goes into you. So like that's how they get their calcium, that's how you get your calcium. You can skip the cow and go right to the plants. Once you kind of start latching on to this type of lifestyle, you don't,
Yeah.
like I don't drink, I'll tell you, when I had my first 2 children, I would drink a gallon of milk a day.
Right, you said.
A day. But once I started going this way, like I don't have milk. I have it in my chia seed pudding or I put some in my turmeric tea that I have, but like that's it. Okay, so symptoms. No gut symptoms are necessary. Like I said, migraine, food sensitivities, autoimmune disease, skin conditions like eczema, rashes, acne. This is because your skin is an organ, right? We know that. And you have all of this junk now floating around your circulatory system and in your body, and your body needs somewhere to push it out of because it needs to get rid of it. So it comes through in the form of inflammation through your skin because of that. So like people with psoriasis or eczema or like rashes, acne, that's a telltale sign that they have something massive going on in their gut. ADD, ADHD, autism, brain fog, joint pain, fatigue, food sensitivities, and then you do have digestive symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation, reflux, IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and diarrhea. Because you have these huge holes in your small intestine and everything's just pouring through and it's going right through your system. So water, I mean, this is actually what happens like physiologically with cholera patients. Their intestinal permeability just rips right open and everything just dumps through. So it's kind of similar in a way.
And how many medications do we have just on the digestive system symptoms alone?
Right.
You know, I'm not even looking at the left-hand column, but you know, just you know, IBS and reflux, and you know, that's how I treat it. Take the medication.
Right. Which actually is one of the root causes of leaky gut. So here's a list of chronic diseases: Alzheimer's, asthma, cancer, heart disease, autoimmune, including rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, vitiligo, celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, which is horrible, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Crohn's, fibromyalgia, fatty liver, obesity, mental illnesses, including depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, autism, nutritional deficiencies, diabetes, food allergies, and sensitivities. These are all linked to leaky gut. Causes of leaky gut. Dysbiosis, which is a bacterial imbalance, like you have this war going on between your good and bad bacteria all the time. So it would be the bad bacteria is winning because because the bad bacteria are being fed the food that the bad bacteria thrive on, which is sugar, it's gluten, it's refined foods, it's processed foods. Like those are the food, dairy, because it's so high in sugar. So bad bacteria are winning. Think about that now. Every single time you drink milk or you want milk, you're like, no, I don't want, I gotta kill those bad bacteria. Starve them, that's how they die. And then start feeding, I wish I brought that. I bought fermented beets for Greg to try. But I'll bring them next time so you can try them. Feed your good bacteria fermented food and they'll start kicking butt and you'll see it. Gluten, proteins from unsprouted grains. So again, it's the only way to eat wheat is if it's sprouted. So an Ezekiel bread is a great bread. It's like the only bread. They used to have this avocado, street. Avellero.
Yeah.
It's a mix between avellero and avocado. Just blend those words together, and that was what?
Alvaro.
Something.
Alvaro, A-L-V-A-R-O, I think.
Well, no, it's the brand of the bread that used to be a sprouted bread, and then they sold and they stopped selling it. But otherwise, don't buy bread if it's not sprouted because it's not made properly, and you have to. It was one of the principles. Like you have to eat food the way that it was designed to be eaten, and the only way that you can digest and get actual nutritional value from wheat is eating sprouted, organic, really well grown wheat.
Has anybody tried the Ezekiel bread yet?
I use the one with the green packaging. I think it's because it has the sesame seeds.
Yeah, sesame seeds, yeah.
What do you think? You like it?
I like that one the best.
You don't like it? No, it's a transition. But if you take a break from bread altogether, that's what I would suggest. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're right.
Yeah.
So when you if you eventually get
But
back to
I don't eat a lot of bread. I'm not a,
Oh.
yeah.
Good.
Do you know what is good? The cinnamon raisin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
The cinnamon raisin
Toast?
is good.
Yeah.
See, I'm Puerto
Cinnamon
Rican.
raisin.
I'm the rice and beans girl.
Oh,
so
good.
I have a tough time with not eating rice.
Cauliflower rice.
Cauliflower rice.
Cauliflower rice does not taste
Really?
like rice.
I mean,
No, it doesn't.
No.
It's a
you
texture.
saute it with garlic and salt and pepper.
No. No.
You can't do quinoa. I want to look at this more
Quinoa,
because.
beans. What about your brown rice?
Well,
why
no,
not
she's
rice,
doing the
though?
whole 30.
Yeah, whole
I'm
30
not-
right now.
You
Yeah.
can't do
understand.
grains, right?
Can't do grains.
I mean, just in general.
But once I finish the whole 30, then you could start introducing certain things. But I noticed the difference, like, already.
I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Thank
This is
you.
cool. Add in the collagen. I gotta,
Okay.
add in the collagen. And are you on a good probiotic? Do you
No,
have? are you
I
on-
gotta get it on
Okay,
a program.
get it, good. I'll send, okay.
Yeah,
Let me
send
write
me
myself
a-
a note.
Yeah.
And will you do fermented foods? Do you like, that's a tough one for some people I know, but like sauerkraut or fermented beets?
I like sauerkraut.
Okay.
I don't know, I've never tasted fermented beets.
Okay.
Good.
Where do you live?
In New Milford,
By Big Y or Stop and Shop?
Big Y.
Okay, so Big Y's got a great fermented food section.
Okay.
Really?
Any fermented food you get needs to be refrigerated, and the only ingredients in it are supposed to be the vegetable, like cabbage or beets or carrots, and vinegar and salt. No calcium, bromine, like none of that. If it's on a shelf outside a refrigerator, don't get it. If it's
So it's in the health food section in the fridge?
in the fridge. Well,
Okay.
yeah, if you walk into the produce section, the wall all the way to
Yeah.
your right, it's not the first one, there's juice. The second one's got like
Right.
miso and sprouts and sauerkraut, like a whole sauerkraut and kimchi and beets and
Kimchi's good.
carrot, ginger,
Kimchi, that's the one I was thinking of.
kimchi's,
Yeah.
yeah. I think they have a mild one too, that's
You
good if
eat
you
it,
like
you like
spice.
it?
I've had it, I don't eat it regularly, no, I've had it before, I didn't care for it so
Yeah.
much, but
You gotta try
Throw it
different
in a
brands.
salad, throw it in a salad, mix it in with stuff. You don't have to eat it just by
How
itself.
much should you be eating?
2 spoonfuls a day.
So,
That's all you need. That's all you
Can I
need.
cook with it? Like, can I hide it in the food for the kids? Like, is it?
Will they eat a salad? We'll make a huge salad and throw the 2 tablespoons in there. I mean, each person should be getting 2 tablespoons. Well,
Yeah.
they don't like it. I mean, honestly, because we have different flavors that our tongue wants, like salt, sweet. Umami is one of them, which is that type of like tangy. It hits the back of your taste buds. Like it's one of the flavors that our brain likes. So have them try it. I mean, umami. Something. It ends in an I. It's a flavor profile. Yeah, so fermented foods are phenomenal for your good bacteria. They are very easily digestible because the bacteria in them have already digested a lot of the cellulose that is difficult for you to digest, so it's a really easily digestible vegetable. Actually, I think I have a little clip that maybe we can play if we have time. Sugar, dairies, GMOs, we know that, as Martin said, glyphosate on stuff literally just rips. If you put glyphosate and human cells in a petri dish, it pulls them apart. So you eat this stuff, I mean, outside of, you know, bad bacteria and gluten and stuff like that, I mean, if you're eating conventionally raised stuff with pesticides, bless you, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides on them, that's also getting into your system. That's also going into your circulatory system. So you got massive problems. And then the Bt toxin, as Martin spoke about, it's designed to drill holes in the insect's intestinal wall. So that's what it's doing to you. We went through that when we did GMOs like crazy. Chemicals from conventional farming. A poor diet, nutritional insufficiencies, because you need proteins and you need a certain amount of health to hold tight, like to create tight junctions. You need proteins and things like this that your body can use in order to build healthy tissue in the first place. Toxic exposures. There's, you know, 3 different things that cause all disease. It's environment, it's epigenetics, and it's nutrition. These are like the 3 legs of health. You can't have 2 and not 1, your health falls down. You need all 3 of them to maintain a healthy lifestyle. You need a clean environment, you need clean air, you need clean water, you need clean sheets, you need that, and you need clean food. And that in turn works on your genetics. Right? Because you can have a whole history of heart disease and diabetes and high cholesterol and all of this horrible stuff in your family. And if you have a clean environment and you're eating well, those things aren't going to affect you because you are changing your genes bite by bite.
it's been proven, yes. Epigenetics is basically, it's been studied now and proven that our choices and our lifestyle choices
Trump.
dictate what your genes are. So like, you know, the genetic, you know, disposition and like it's inherited doesn't really hold weight because number one, why now? Why are we having this explosion of diseases now? We've been evolved for how many thousands, millions of years, right? We never had this problem until the Industrial Revolution, and that's when it really exploded and all these diseases. So why did all our ancestors, why? And then second is if you take, like say like a rural, like Japanese person or from Africa where they eat mostly plant-based and there's no heart disease, there's no cancer, it just doesn't exist. But you transplant them here, and all of a sudden they transition to our diet, and all of a sudden that same person and their families all of a sudden have all of the diseases that we have. Put them back in their natural habitat where they came from, well, it all goes away. So it doesn't really hold weight. So epigenetics is so we all have like that gene within us. And that's like the gun, the loaded gun. And our choices is really what pulls the trigger, is how I heard it described. So if you're eating all kinds of bad stuff, and your diet's horrible, and you're exposed to all these toxins, environmental and through your diet, then, you know, that's what's gonna pull the trigger and cause you to have those diseases. And like I said, we'll go over Colin Campbell, who wrote the China study. I touched on it before, but he basically turned cancer on and off by increasing in laboratory rats the 20% casein, which is the protein found in milk. And when he increased it to 20%, it turned on cancer. And like 90% of the rats had cancer. And when he went back down to 5%, cancer went away. And he was able to do this consistently with the casein. He was able to like turn it on and off. And he did the same thing with the plant-based protein, went up to 20%, but nothing happened. It was only the animal-based casein that he did it with.
Medications, right? Because, geez, these things are really hard on your digestive tract, and do they have a list of side effects a mile long? I mean, most of them are petroleum-based. Gluten. Okay, it's the protein in wheat. It's an insoluble protein. It's found in wheat, rye, barley, oats, triticale, and spelt. Gluten is higher in wheat now than it was in the past due to demand from industry. So like einkorn wheat is really low in gluten. Bakers this day and age don't necessarily like it because it doesn't make really super fluffy, doughy, chewy bread. That's what makes bread chewy is gluten. So they want high gluten wheat because it sells better for them, right? So industry has dictated the high gluten in all of this stuff now. It's a filler. This slide should go up with the other wheat stuff. It's a filler in everything. Supplements, medications, shampoo, conditioner, skincare, makeup, processed, packaged foods, deli meats, and it blocks mineral absorption. It blocks iron absorption. What was I going to say?
Well, it's probably due a lot to the glyphosate. Because I don't know if you know glyphosate, that's one of the things it does is it blocks mineral absorption. And that's why it's so bad for the soil. People, you know, farmers, conventional farmers who use chemicals and grow genetically modified crops, wheat and stuff like that, they're spraying Roundup. They're called Roundup Ready plants sold by Monsanto. And all that does, all they do is they modify the plant so that it can withstand heavy doses of Roundup. Everything else dies except the plant they're growing. So now, you know, I think like how many tons?
3 pounds per person?
I don't know. There's a lot of tons of Roundup are dumped into our
tons,
soil
yeah.
yearly. So this glyphosate is going into the soil, and one of the main things it does is it blocks mineral absorption, which is really not a good characteristic of the soil. You don't want your soil blocking mineral uptake in plants. So now the plants can't uptake the minerals.
Because that's where you get your minerals from, is the soil.
And they're growing sick, weak plants. And they feed it, you know, chemical fertilizers, petroleum-based fertilizers, that just have NPK in it, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the 3 main things to grow. And they're missing on the 52 other minerals needed to grow the plants. So, you know, it's just a vicious cycle. And now in the meantime, they're destroying the soil, and we lose like a football field a day or something from erosion. Because the soil is just so dry, it can't absorb water. You have to water it consistently, so now the water problem is, you know, involved, and it takes so much water, and we're drying up all our aquifers at the rate where they're going to be dry in about 20 years. And it goes on and on. And that's just a whole nother subject, and that's just what it's doing to the environment. So think about what it's doing when it goes inside your body. Yeah, I mean, so a conventional vegetable not only is full of chemicals and pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all that, but it's nutrient deficient. It doesn't have the nutrients in it that vegetables used to have like 30, 40, 50 years ago, even 20 years ago. So the nutrients just aren't there. And then what do we do with it? We cook it, right? We cook it, and now we're killing all the enzymes in it, and whatever vitamins and minerals are left, we're frying them up. So by the time you're eating it, there's really very little nutritional value in it at all.
Something else about gluten, like people that are super sensitive to gluten. So like there's celiac disease, right? This is a genetic, they cannot, look at this. Look at what nature does on the left. That holds water, that holds moisture, that converts carbon from the atmosphere into all the nutrients that the microbes in the soil need in order to make that plant grow. And then look at what, look at what it looks like on this side. There's nothing in there. I mean, this type of farming that we do now is what led to the Dust Bowl way back when, because we removed all of the roots. We're demolishing our topsoil. Top scientists and environmental researchers in this area say that we have about 60 harvests left on Earth if we do not change our agricultural practices. Like that's ultimately, like forget eating organic, like that's actually where the change needs to happen. It needs to happen in our agricultural practices, or else like your kids, like, because your kids, right, will be around in 60 years, aren't going to have food unless they know how to do it themselves, because they're not going to be able to get it from a grocery store, because the grocery stores aren't going to be able to get any vegetables. And if you don't have fruits and vegetables, then you don't have health. It doesn't come, obviously you know now, it doesn't come from packaged stuff, so where else are you going to get it from? Oh, but one thing I wanted to touch on, like the skincare products. People don't think about it, but your skin is an organ.
It's the largest organ of your body, actually.
So a fun fact I learned during my studies was under ideal conditions, your skin in the shower has the capability of absorbing up to 6 cups of water through processes that it undergoes. So this is how I got my parents to switch their pool from a chlorine pool to a saltwater pool, because I told them that fun fact. I mean, I have children that are definitely very sensitive, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so like let's stop swimming in chlorine. I mean, saltwater pools are actually easier to take care of in the long run, and they're really amazing for you. It's like taking a salt bath, like, right? I mean, maybe not so concentrated, but.
In 2004, a study was done involving 2 groups of mice. One of these groups had the germs in their stomach artificially removed, while the other had theirs left intact. Both groups were wired up and then exposed to a stressful experience. What they found that was while both groups responded to the stressor, the germ-free mice had a measurably exaggerated response. This sparked interest in a concept called the gut-brain axis. The idea that the microbes in your intestines vastly affect the way your brain and nervous system function. The link had previously not been made, but the next question was, of course, could this have an application for humans? It turns out it does, in a big way. There is in fact a war going on in your gut. The so-called good bacteria are pitted against the so-called bad bacteria. Now, who's winning this fight is of great importance to you. These bacteria can affect everything from mood to obesity levels. Both bacteria control important levers in the enteric nervous system, which in turn cause chemical cascades that affect all parts of your body, right up to your brain. An overabundance of the bad guys, for example, causes an imbalance that results in some very common psychological problems. While the good guys, on the other hand, can help keep us relaxed, they do this by releasing GABA and stimulating the vagus nerve, amongst other things. This collective of gut bacteria is known as the microbiome. They live inside you, in symbiosis. You need them, and they need you. But just like you, they need to be fed in the right way. This brings us to a fact that has been known by most cultures for at least thousands of years, that what you eat shapes who you are. The food you put into your gut encourages the growth of one of these kinds of bacteria, and that in turn affects all the aforementioned things. Given these advances, scientists have identified certain foods that encourage the good guy bacteria, and they call them probiotics. Now you might think this is a scientific breakthrough. Well, not quite. These have been known for literally thousands of years by the Roman, the Vedic, and the Chinese cultures, to name a few. 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, men of the Thracian culture, a warrior race, drank sour milk before going to battle. Marco Polo, the explorer, hailed the magical qualities of an ancient drink known as kefir. And one version of the Bible even says Abraham, a patriarch of Judaism, owed his long life to the consumption of sour milk. I say all this only to prove that this is not new knowledge, but medical science can be slow to catch up. Remarkably, many health professionals don't make much of this connection. Could this issue be an elephant in the room in mental health? Rates of mental illness are on an all-time high. About 9% of people are on antidepressants in the UK. In the USA, the figure is over 10%. There are now more than 50 million prescriptions of antidepressants in the UK in a year. And when these diagnoses and prescriptions are made, diet is usually not part of the protocol. This not only ignores our ancestral knowledge, it actually is unscientific. The nervous system, like any organ, is highly sensitive to the environmental and is absolutely shaped by what you eat. The probiotics of yesteryear have been removed from the modern diet in favor of other foods, and no prizes for guessing the kind of bacteria they encourage. Could this be one of the major factors in the mental health epidemic we see in the Western world?
I mean, because even just logically thinking about it, so right now I think it's like 1 in 36 kids have autism diagnosis. By 2036 or something like that, it's supposed to be 1 in 3. And for every autistic child, you need 2 support people. Just like you do, they can't be on their own, right? So if 1 in 3 have autism and you need 2 support people for every one, like who's working? Like what does that look like when they are the ones who are running the world? Like, what does that look like? Oh, you can watch Charlie. Sure, this is our daughter.
Hi, my name is Charlie Joan Russo. I live at 39 Mistill Drive, and I am 7 years old. I am in 2nd grade, and I want to live on a healthy planet. I want to have healthy food and clean water and air. I want the world to be a better place. We are a family of 6, and we eat a really healthy organic diet. We have a really big garden, and we help our parents pick fruits and veggies all season long. We don't really ever get sick, so we don't need to take medicine. My parents say that if we bring health back to the soil, we can make people healthy again like we did in our house. I wish the world could be like my family. The power is in the food. Thank you for your time.
Bragging. So, okay, that was a really great lecture. I hope you guys got a lot out of it because it's where 90% of the people are failing.